All right, now joining us on the Inside in Tennis podcast to recap some of the events this ongoing weekend as we gear up for Indian Wells. Tennis betting expert, man of the people, man of the internet streets, Kenny Ducey joining the show from Tennis Bets Live too as well. But Kenny, welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking some time out of the day to talk old tennis here.
It's always great to be with you, Mitch. I love talking tennis with you, and it was it's always a fun time of the tennis calendar. Indian Wells is obviously my favorite tournament, but the weeks leading up to Indian Wells, you get I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just there's nothing to look forward to after the Super Bowl in February, so you get packed weeks with 3 tournaments last week on the ATP, WTA here in the States already, and then you get Dallas. I don't know. I just feel like it's I always remember betting on those tournaments, watching those tournaments for the last few years. Buenos Aires is always fun. We didn't have Cordoba this year, but It's a unique part of the calendar, but I love it.
You can really build some momentum too. We've seen players have their breakout, what we would think would be Indian Wells, Miami, but it really starts about February into March when you build the groundwork. Or you can right the ship as one of the players did. And I want to start with him. The Dubai champion on the men's side was Stefanos Tsitsipas. Really exciting tournament all the way through. It had some big name players, some players that weren't playing due to injury, rest, whatever. But Tsitsipas did play. He made the racket change, which we'll get into in a second, but he beat some very good players along the way. Semifinals and finals, Kenny, he goes Greek sport Felix and plays about as good as he's played in a long time, especially on the hard courts. He was able to dictate play. He minimized mistakes, really played some smart percentage tennis. But you were kind of on this early, said Tsitsipas was looking good, had the juice, as you said, going into that final weekend. What do you think it was about this that all clicked for him in Dubai where he was peaking and ultimately holding the trophy?
Well, I think sometimes we talk about players' history at tournaments, and I think sometimes you can make a semifinal, you can get a couple walkovers, you maybe get a nice draw, break the right way for you. But I think this was a tournament that Tsitsipas has played well before. He's made the semis, he's made the final in different years, and his dad also, his parents weren't necessarily helicoptering over him at this tournament either. And I think the combination of just feeling good, knowing that he's won matches here before, it's a relatively big tournament as a 500. I think that did the trick for him, but he mentally reset in this tournament. I know obviously the racket might have a little bit to do with it too. I think we saw what happened to Riley Opelka once he switched to Yonex. I mean, he beat Novak Djokovic, so it can certainly help. But I think the biggest thing, just to promote Tennis Channel here, I remember years and years ago when you guys used to run the advertisements for the TC Podcast Network, there was a clip of someone saying, there's just this need to win, this hunger in Stefanos Tsitsipas, like he just needs to win matches. And that's really what he was all about early in his career, right? He was just this killer. He attacked. He was not going to back down from a challenge. He went up 2 sets to love on Novak Djokovic at the French Open. And, I think this is what's beautiful about tennis is it's such a mental game. For years he had Holger Rune and Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner and all these young guys coming up. I don't know why I mentioned Holger first, but I think he would appreciate that. And he just realized, maybe I am not going to be the number 1 player in the world. And then Zverev lapped him a little bit, and he had a big year last year. So I think sometimes, you can process things in a week, a day, a couple weeks. I think for Tsitsipas, it took him a year or two to really process where he sat on the ladder in tennis. And I think what happened here was good familiarity with the courts. I think finally he's sort of gotten over the fact that he hasn't made a slam final in a couple years, and he might not win a slam with the way that the younger players are looking, just kind of comfortable in his own skin now. And with all that said, I mean, I think he was always going to lose that match to Medvedev. I think everyone was making fun of him for that one. Medvedev couldn't walk. I was watching the whole thing. Medvedev fell over him. He's a player.
It was, but, that's a good point though, because similar to Madison Keys, who also switched rackets, and another one there, she was open about how, look, I'm not putting all the pressure on myself. I want to win a major. I'm going to fight like hell to do it. But if I don't, that doesn't mean I'm a failure in tennis and in life. And I think processing, it's part of it. I do think, in addition to what you said, health is wealth in all sports. And last year, for the majority of it, he was not 100%. I know a lot of players are dealing with stuff, so he does look more spry. I would say, too, and it goes back to opportunity, right? When you go into a tournament and you see, your guy Draper not playing as well, add to the list, but Rublev is coming in tired and fatigued. This was a real opportunity, and I will give credit to the other players like Felix to get to the final, and you said you became a Greek sport guy in this tournament, too. But players that showed up ready to play, well, when he beat Medvedev, but No,
I'm always been a big Greek sport guy. I've actually been.
yeah,
It's been a tough existence as a Greek sport supporter because I feel like he came out
yeah,
and it looked like he was so hot on the challengers, and that's really Mitch, you
yeah, I
learn
do.
those lessons when you follow Brandon Nakashima, you follow a guy through the challenge like this guy, he beats
Yeah, and
everybody,
then
he's unbeatable,
well,
and then
do you think the Tsitsipas stuff too? I mean, it was the racket, and I don't obviously changing and showing that you're willing to make adjustments is the big thing. I don't want to make it as simple as new racket is going to equal success for all these players,
oh,
but
he
just
changed his serve too at
yeah,
the beginning of the year.
yes, that's a big part. And speaking of the serve, right? What you'll notice in these matches, if you rewatch them, especially Felix, when he got up, when the finish line for a set, the match was in play, he just served lights out and he was able to just take out the drama, take out that mental doubt of, oh, here it comes again. So there wasn't really a lot of adversity as he was serving out these matches, the final two.
Yeah, and even I think it was in maybe the Berrettini match late in that one. I mean, he either saved the big break point late in the third set with a beautiful volley or a beautiful pickup off a half volley. Like he just that was like to me the biggest telltale sign of where he is right now. Like just coming to the net and coming in at an awkward time, maybe a little late. And just having, and he had the confidence. He knew he was going to hit that pickup, and just placed it beautifully off the line. Like I just feel like that is we're seeing it with Shapovalov this year as well. Like the confidence is also so huge for some of these players, and Berrettini's got it now, Greek Sport's got it now, and that's the dangerous thing when you're a Medvedev or someone who's trying to hold their position.
Doesn't have it.
Right.
Right
It
now.
is like if you give a guy confidence, like that could go and turn their career around. And,
Yeah.
Christian Garin years and years ago and Riley Opelka, like there's, everybody really needs confidence. But yeah, I mean, I would just say you're right that the adjustments that he's made have been absolutely massive and we can't look past those. But I think they've helped him win some matches and then get back on the right foot. And, you mentioned Felix, obviously the biggest confidence-driven player, but I wasn't really surprised with Felix. I don't know why everyone was like, I mean, even going into round one last week, everyone was like, yeah, Felix is gonna, he's gonna be tired, he's gonna lose.
I mean, I'll get to Felix this. I do want to say Tsitsipas, the one thing is he can do so much. Like we talk about things that, he hasn't done, bad losses, and there have been some, but he can do things that separate him in this sport. So I think that was a reminder this week. For Felix, I mean, you look at the numbers, look at just the live ranking, he's been a top 10 player this year. So I'm with you there. Like going into the first match in Dubai, like to expect him to completely have a letdown, the numbers haven't been there in 2025.
No, and I also think like he is the marathon man. That's who Felix is. I mean, we saw at the end of 2022, you mentioned he's a top 10 player right now. He was a top 3 player at the end of 2022 going into the ATP finals. I mean, there was no one hotter on tour. He won he goes on Sinner runs, honestly, not at Grand Slams, of course, that's the difference, but he'll win, he'll win 3 out of 4 tournaments. He'll go to the final of 1. Like that's when he came up on tour, and it was ironic that he came up on clay, really. He was winning all those matches on the Golden Swing. What was it, like 4 or 5 years ago, and just stacking weeks and weeks together on the challengers. And then at the the 250s and the 500s, like, that's really who he is deep down. Is he's gonna go on a run, and he's got incredible stamina. Like he will continue, he'll play for months if he's in form. So that's we don't really get to see that because when he's down on his confidence, when he's not playing well, he's exiting in the second round. But when he is on, like we are used to seeing Felix just continue to run and run and run, which is one of the most impressive things about him. Considering like you would figure a player who's maybe fatigued would start to make more errors, and then that would throw his confidence for a loop. But he looks. I don't think he looks like the best player in the world right now, but he certainly is just he's coming up with serves when he needs to. He's lasting in rallies on break points, and at 30 all there was a lot of 30 all points throughout the week that he was trying to that he overcame in really tough situations, the Marin Cilic match. So he's really stepped up in those big spots, and I mean I'm expecting another huge week at Indian Wells and then in Miami as well. Like I think those 4 weeks could be really, really fruitful for him.
Big for Tsitsipas to get the win. Felix has kind of had him in a lot of, especially earlier in their careers. Felix has had the hammer. Tsitsipas, the racket change and playing some smart points, not really going for the margins that we've seen. One thing I don't know how you feel about this, Kenny, but I think much ado about the 500 level thing. Like I know that it's a stat and it's cool, but what would you rather he had more success there and less at the thousands and the slams? Like I don't I don't really distinguish it that much as a
Well,
big
yeah,
deal.
it's like you want to be Andre Rublev or Stefanos Tsitsipas. It's a really tough question, but Andre Rublev has won a million ATP 500s. In fact, many of them over Stefanos Tsitsipas in the final.
Yep.
That was a big narrative. What was like 4 years ago. But he's never made it past the quarterfinal of a Grand Slam. So that's Tsitsipas has been a set away from winning a Slam. He went to the Australian Open final to play Novak Djokovic. Didn't go well, but. I mean, neither has won a Slam, but like I'd rather be the guy who
financially, I think you'd rather make that final of a major than
Yeah, he's definitely he's had a higher ranking, he's had a bigger profile, and that's also like he's a vlogger and a world traveler and loves to post online. But that aside, like he has had more success in his career, even though I mean, I think it's just a fun thing we like to say. I mean, we used to say that about Felix going to finals as well and never winning, and then he won a lot of them.
Well, that was important in Dubai. I do want to switch to Acapulco because that was one we talked about last week where I thought it was kind of wide open in a sense where I could see a lot of different champions. And what we got was a pretty good run to the final. And winning it was Machac over Davidovich-Fokina, two guys that did not have titles going into it. It was Machac that gets the first one there. Tomas Machac, starting with him, Kenny, flawless in that final in that first set and second really on serve. Didn't lose a first serve point in the entire first set. He gets his first title. He gets into the top 20. The way he was playing in this match, I mean, this doesn't look like it's going to be a flash in the pan. I was just blown away. We can talk about narratives and finals. This was a guy playing lights out tennis in the final match of the tournament.
Well, ironically, he reminds me a lot of Felix, where if he's going to play a guy that's outside the top 10, like he's going to have all the confidence in the world. And when this guy, it feels like he can win, like he will win. That's sort of what Tomas Machac is all about. He has an unbelievably clean game. He serves really underratedly big and well, hits spots very well. I saw him mix up a second serve against Nakashima on a break point, just completely flustered him going down the tee for an ace. I think that there's a lot of talent in this racket, and this year is really going to be about, can he beat a top 5 player and start to really, take that next step to the next level and be a competitor at these Grand Slams? Because I think we saw it against Novak Djokovic, where clearly Novak Djokovic did not have what it took to probably even make the semi of the Australian Open or the quarter. I mean, I don't think he deserved to be there. And, Machac really just laid an egg in that match, looked nervous, went for jumping backhands that went, 5 feet beyond the baseline. Like, I don't really know what he was doing, but I think once he wins one of those matches, and it could be against, an Alexander Zverev or, one of the more vulnerable players up there, I think that he will. I mean, even Taylor Fritz was really too much for him at the United Cup this year. Like he just still, even though he had that doubles medal at the Olympics, like he just still feels a little bit nervous in these spots.
Do you think that, and this is, I'm asking the question, I'm generally curious, he wins, he gets his title, his ranking goes up. Is that just going to mean that there's more people he believes he can beat? Like obviously you name some of the best players in the game, but now we're raising the bar a little bit. So I'm trying to, spin it as a positive favor for Machac. Now there's only a few players in the world really ranked ahead of you.
I absolutely think so. I mean, I think winning a 500 level title, I mean, you saw what it meant to him last night. And I also don't think that was really a low quality win at all. I mean, that first set was so tense. Alex Davidovich-Fokina had set point there, played a really, really solid tiebreaker. And that first set really decided who was going to win the match, because at that point, both guys had given so much that week. But yeah, I do feel like that's definitely going to do a lot for his confidence. I mean, neither guy had a title, and now Machac has one. I mean, the only tough part, I mean, you could look back to like late last year when he beat Draper at a challenger final, and Draper was at the time like on fire. I mean, we know obviously he's incredibly talented, and before that he had made the 4th round of a Slam, but that was, I thought was maybe going to be a stepping stone for him, and then he came in and just, at the United Cup looked good, but again, like against Fritz, laid an egg. So I still need to see it before I believe it. But I think that this was a very good first step, and there's not a lot of players like him that just will play with a level of consistency and outlast their opponents in rallies, but find these amazing angles. I mean, I'm excited to see what he does on clay. Frankly, I think that could be a really good spot for him as well. With the style of play he has, but I think there's a lot of upside here with him, and I'm sad that we can't talk more about Alex Davidovich-Fokina because he had just as good of a week.
I mean, we could
and
talk about him. I would say though, for my goal setting, and it's obviously up to the player, but a slam quarterfinal, like can you get to the final 8 of a slam this year?
yeah, I
And
mean,
build, yeah,
Karen
and
Hatchinoff did it
yeah.
way back when,
So
and
that's
I mean,
almost that should be something that he gets done this year, if we're going to be honest, right? Like get to a
yes,
slam quarterfinal, and then okay, there's something there.
it would
Like,
be a disappointment if he
yeah.
didn't.
We got more with Kenny Ducey here on the Inside in Tennis podcast. And you mentioned him, Fokina. I do want to round out Acapulco talking about how he was able to play. And as we know, right, not all losses, not all final losses are the same. He's been chasing this title. The situation with Kekmanovic and Del Rey, a little different than this one. This was a great run to the final, and he played against a guy who brought his A level. Even in that tiebreak, he was right there in the first. But you said it right, like he's back to Alex Davidovich-Fokina, and there's some jest in there, but there's also the fact that, yeah, he's kind of rediscovered what got him to this point of being, someone that can make noise and really mess things up.
Well, I mean, there's not really any jest. I know there's a lot of jest in most of the things I say, but there's really no jest there. I mean, he's rebranded. I mean, I think when we watched him play again all these years ago, is probably back in like 2019 or 2020 when he was really rising up the ranks in the challengers, winning all these, indoor tournaments and a bunch. I mean, he was, one of those guys that you saw week after week going to finals, and, the headband, the short haircut, like just the relentlessness, but also the fearlessness, just to use a bunch of words to describe him. But like, I just felt like he was in a electricity machine. Like he just unbelievably good and just nails in pressure situations. And speaking of confidence, like I think he had all the confidence in the world. So I think he sort of rediscovered that mindset this year. I mean, I don't know if it's just as simple as the haircut and the headband going back to his classic look there, but I mean, I don't know what it was when he came out this year. I mean, to be fair, I watched I don't know if you remember the first match of the season last year was Alex Davidovich-Fokina against Thiago Seyboth-Wild. And I thought Fokina looked really good in that match. Like first match of the year, I mean, that we saw on the ATP level, but first match of his, like he looked really good. I was like, this is going to be a huge year for Fokina. And then all of a sudden it was the same old ADF where, he got hot for a few weeks, but, just to really preserve his ranking.
Yeah, I thought how he performed in that Tiafoe match in Acapulco when he should have, I mean, I think you agree, like he should have won in straight sets. Didn't happen.
Yep.
It was good. He just went back to it and outlasted him, outperformed him in the third set. So, no, I'm with you. I think this is another guy that's finding what made him who he was and how he got noticed, and I think it could be a good thing, which is more than I can say. It was underwhelming for some players in Acapulco, and I mentioned like the Americans, as we said, Shelton bowing out, Tiafoe, the food poisoning.
There was also some food related things that went on there, but not everyone can go out every night and get drunk until 3 a.m. and then win the tournament like Nick Kyrgios did. So maybe that's the secret. Maybe these players just need to be going out more and having more fun.
Do you think Zverev is going to take some time to adjust to the hard courts, or was that just a one-off Acapulco food situation? Because Golden Swing didn't go that well, and you kind of caught me. Werner beating him, Werner Tien, but it was his first hard court match back. So what's the grace period that we should expect from Zverev?
Yeah, I mean, I was worried about him in his first match just to go back onto hard courts because he did play so well on clay. But I mean, I do think that he looked fine. I think it was real. I would chalk that more up to whatever was going on with his stomach or his body. But I'm not really that worried about it. I think that he'll come out Indian Wells. Those are favorable conditions for him and probably go to the semi. I mean, I don't know if he'll win, but there's a lot to I think there's a lot to look forward to with Zverev. I don't think he's really dipped at all with his level, and he's one of those guys, like you always say it with the top guys, but I mean, even at the Australian Open, like he had an unbelievable 2 weeks, and he still, to me, felt like he could have played better. Like there were a lot of those matches where he didn't look the most composed, but I mean, that's something we always say about Novak Djokovic. And Carlos Alcaraz won 2 slams last year, and he really never played the best tennis he could have played. Like, I know our boy Pat said that was one of the worst matches he'd ever seen him play in the semis against Sinner at the French Open. So some of the players, just like the top guys, just have the level and the ability to just win matches with, maybe their aura and, their talent when they're not playing their best. But I think that we'll probably see the best that we've seen out of Zverev here over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm excited to see what that means. I don't know if he'll win one of these tournaments. I think this could be a big moment for Carlos, but we'll see.
It's a big build-up for him, too. It's the right spot of the schedule. Indian Wells to Miami to the clay run, where he's had a lot of success in the years. Well,
Yeah,
want to wind it.
Indian Wells where he lost to Tommy Paul.
Yeah, I said in the
Revenge.
year. In the
Revenge is on the
years. Yeah.
menu, I think. I think he's gonna take his revenge this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it very well may be the case. Just before we let you go, Kenny, this has been a blast on the women's side. We saw as we finished recording this, or as we started, Pegula won the title in Austin All-American final over McCartney Kessler. I mean, for Kessler, start with the loser first, going out of order, but seeing her in the mix has been kind of nice. It's the first year pro at 25. It took her some time, played all the years in college, working her way up through the ranks, and looks like she's kind of there to stay, getting to another final, losing to a top player, but has a title, has a win over Coco Gauff. I've been a big fan of her game, and I think this isn't just fluky at all.
I don't think so either. I mean, she did kind of put over Christina Buxa. That was a really good second round match,
Yeah.
or whatever round of 16 match that they played. I thought that either player could have won that one, but yeah, she really grinded it out for those two matches in the second and third rounds, and then eventually, was able to come away with an easy win over Grietmann and as a pretty decent favorite there. I thought that she put up a really good fight against Pegula in the first set. Obviously, didn't win that match, and once you lose the first set to Pegula the way that she was running, you're not going to beat her. Pegula took a really tough, big punch from Tomljanovic in the semis and won that match anyway. She's just been so good. Similar to what we were saying just earlier in the show about, against players that are just outside really her level of the top five. But I think the sky's the limit for Kessler. I know she's a little older in terms of tennis prospects, but I really like her game quite a bit. And I think that, we've already seen a really solid start, 14-6 across all levels. I think she'll continue to win. She didn't win as much last year as maybe we thought she would, but, hard courts obviously are her jam as well as indoors. So we'll see. This is a big part of the calendar as we're talking about on hard courts. We have a lot to look forward to when we're watching her play the Sunshine Double here. So we'll see. Not the Golden Swing.
No,
we didn't talk about the Golden Swing, unfortunately. But that's okay.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we're winding it down today. Sebi Baez going for another title, just racking them up down there.
That is kind of boring, honestly.
Just racking them, stacking them, and pinning them down there is what he's doing. But honestly, Pegula getting this, I know it's a 250, but needing not the confidence builder, she has confidence, but getting back in the winner's circle, trying to keep up with the players at the top of the game. And maybe there is an opportunity. We'll see. We know how Iga performs down here. We are recording before the other women's final, the 500 level event. Emma Navarro against Colombian, the Arango, I've been watching her matches, and it's, there's been an opportunity in the draw for her. But, on the other side, Emma Navarro is another American trying to, I don't want to say right the ship, but it hasn't been as great a year for her. This could be the first step in a big, switch on her path this season.
Yeah, I mean, she's 10 in the world, and I think, we saw it with, I'm not trying to disparage Casper Ruud, but we saw it with Casper Ruud early in his career. Like, it is important, when you are sort of struggling in the bigger tournaments, just to, as you said, stack those wins like Sebi Baez. I mean, this is another, trophy she could put on her mantle if she's able to win this match and she is a sizable favorite. But I feel like, similar to what we've been saying, we were talking on the show during the Australian Open how we were like, we're not really sure Emma Navarro looks that good. And then she won some big matches there. Like, that's the potential that she has, the ability that she has. And another player that, going to maybe slower speeds here at Indian Wells, I'm not sure. But I have a feeling that Miami's a good tournament for her. I could see a semi in Miami, especially with the crowd support behind her. And, I mean, we saw what happened at the U.S. Open. Like, she does love playing here in the States. So we'll see what ends up happening to her. But, interestingly enough, that's coming in Mexico, this title, the first one of the year for her, perhaps.
She, I was going to say, too, that the courts might be a little faster. I don't know if you saw that report today. They're switching how they're going to do them this year. So, company switching.
I did not.
We'll see. Yeah, it's juicy, I'd say. But I'll believe it when I see it. I'm like Medvedev in that regard. I got to see it first before I believe it. All right, Kenny, last thing. This has been great. I want to give you the floor for, a minute or two. Indian Wells coming up. We don't know the draw yet. We know pretty much everybody playing. Players you like, players that you think could be primed for runs, men's and women, just players that like this could be their moment to go deep and maybe win it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all the guys we really mentioned are in the mix. Like, I think, Kecmanovic, I think, has a huge opportunity. Obviously, he loves playing here in the States. Haven't heard a lot from him in the last week because of how that last week went, but I think that he's been playing unbelievably well, and these are the tournaments where we saw what happened with Taylor Fritz. Like, he could definitely take a next step here. Indian Wells has been that sort of, I guess, profile maker for a lot of players. Like Vasilishvili made a final there, and Nori obviously. Like, we saw Tommy Paul beat Alexander Zverev there. Like, this is definitely a moment for a lot of players to have a big breakout, and I think Kecmanovic could certainly be that guy. We'll see what Davidovich-Fokina, Auger-Aliassime have in the tank. I think Tsitsipas obviously has played well here before and is certainly a contender. But outside those names, I did mention Taylor Fritz. I do feel like this is going to be a big year for Carlos Alcaraz. That's why I think ultimately I don't really want to say anyone's going to win these tournaments without him. I think he's going to. Not just because Sinner's not there, but also because
this is his tournament. Like, this does seem like it, in a weird way, could be the one when it's all said and done. I think I said this last year, that could be the one he wins the most.
I agree. I mean, we always talk about it too when he plays Sinner. Like, this is the perfect. Of course, maybe the courts are different this year, but this is usually the perfect spot for him to play, and he can beat anybody on these courts, including Jannik Sinner. I would just say more, this is a guy that was way ahead of Sinner in his development the first couple of years they were on tour, to the point where I was like, this really isn't even a rivalry. This guy's just better, and he's going to win more matches. And then Sinner took that massive leap forward with, I guess, improving the serve and just being cleaner from the baseline. Maybe the coaching of Darren Cahill had something to do with it, but I do feel like these guys are just as talented as one another, and I think this is the year where Carlos takes that step further in his development that Sinner took the last couple of years to really become unbeatable. Not that he's already pretty close to that right now, but I feel like they've kind of been yo-yoing here between who's really ahead of one another, and I think that this is where Carlos takes back that spot and maybe gets back to number one and surpasses Sinner this season. So that's really why I say that. But I would also say, I mentioned Taylor Fritz. I think Taylor Fritz could easily win this tournament. I think he's just kind of waiting in the wings here, lurking, because we're really not. This is not one of the hotter guys on tour right now. But he did have a good AO. I think that this is definitely a situation where we could see a Carlos Taylor final, and who knows? This is obviously where he beat Nadal. I don't know. It seems like a good story.
2022 champ is Fritz. Alcaraz won the last two, going for a three-peat.
And then, and then obviously I mentioned Navarro. I think Navarro is going to have a good sunshine double, because this is a good jumping off point after winning Merida if she does end up winning it. So
it's been like the unofficial start for Iga's clay season too. So it's like, okay, win this and then go on. So
that was where she became Iga too, right, in Miami, when we were all of a sudden we were just like, wait a minute, she's won how many matches in a row? She's number one now. That was the when I covered the Miami
beats like Naomi like 2 in love or something like that. Like, yeah, it was crazy.
That was a weird. That was like when Rublev got beaten like 6-2, 6-1 by Kyrgios. That was, what was it, 2021, maybe 2022? But that was, so Iga loves this part of the year as well. And I haven't mentioned her, so thank you. That's now she's going to win because I didn't do that.
Well, we got her in, so we'll see. Kenny Ducey, this is fun. Always a blast. Remember, check him out. Social media. Lots of great picks on Tennis Bets Live as well. So we'll be doing an Indian Wells preview this week, and then a couple shows into the tournament as well, which will be great. And taking time to do this. I know you're reeling after John Cena's heel turn, so thanks for putting on a brave face today.
Thank you for having me, Mitch. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and anytime you want to chat tennis, I'm here. I love talking ball.
Appreciate that a ton. Kenny Ducey, our guest on the show. Really do appreciate everyone out there watching and listening to the Inside in Tennis podcast. That's going to do it for this week's episode. We're on all your available platforms, so go to Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Amazon Music, and check out the YouTube channel at Mitch Michals for video episodes, as well as some YouTube shorts as well. So for Kenny Ducey, my name is Mitch Michals. Thank you for watching or listening to the Inside in Tennis podcast. I'll talk to you soon.